Welcome back, dear listener. In our last chapter, we began our journey through the remarkable life of Albert Einstein. From his early years and education in Germany to his move to Switzerland. Today, we're diving deeper into the next pivotal phase of his life. His time at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich and the exciting beginnings of his groundbreaking theories that would forever change our understanding of the universe. Albert Einstein wasn't just any student. As a young boy, he already showed a deep curiosity about the world around him. And this would only grow stronger as he entered the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in 1896. At the age of 17, Einstein moved to Zurich to attend the Polytechnic, a highly respected institution in Switzerland. The school was known for training some of the brightest minds in Europe. But Albert wasn't your average student, and his journey here was not without its challenges. Before we go further, let's take a moment to understand the importance of the Swiss Federal Polytechnic. This was no ordinary university. It was the place where many brilliant minds came together, a center of learning and innovation. But what makes Albert's time here special wasn't just his studies in physics or mathematics, it was his unique approach to learning. You see, Albert was never one to follow the traditional path. He didn't just want to memorize formulas or repeat lessons in textbooks. Instead, he had an insatiable desire to understand the why behind everything. While many students stuck to the rules, Albert began thinking outside the box. His professors often struggled to recognize his genius because he was so unconventional. He would frequently challenge traditional methods, which didn't always sit well with the established academic structure. In fact, Albert wasn't the best student in the traditional sense. Though he excelled in subjects like physics and mathematics, he had trouble with more rote-based subjects such as languages and the arts. He struggled in some of his other classes, especially those that required memorization or conformity to rigid standards. Despite his obvious brilliance, this made his time at the Polytechnic a bit of a bumpy ride. In fact, there was a point when Albert's academic record wasn't impressive enough to make him an easy fit for the world of academia. But that didn't stop Albert. While some might have been discouraged, Einstein kept pushing forward. This time in Zurich wasn't just about getting through exams. It was about deepening his understanding of the laws of nature. Einstein's real passion lay in physics. He was fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, and during his time at the Polytechnic, he began to develop a deep interest in theoretical physics. It was here, at the Polytechnic, that Albert Einstein's mind began to explore the very questions that would later form the foundation of his most famous theories. He began questioning how light travels, how time behaves, and why things appear to move the way they do. It was during these early years that Einstein first became captivated by the idea of relativity. The concept that time and space might not be fixed and could change depending on the observer. One of the most significant events in Albert's life during this time came in 1900, when he graduated with a degree in physics. Though he wasn't top of his class, he was clearly on a path towards something extraordinary. But even after graduation, things didn't immediately fall into place. Albert struggled to find a teaching job, and for a while, he worked as a tutor and even a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. However, this job at the patent office turned out to be a blessing in disguise. You see, it wasn't just a mundane desk job. Albert was able to use his spare time to think deeply about physics, and he had the chance to observe numerous inventions and ideas. This time gave him the space to refine his own revolutionary theories. It was in 1905, often called Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, or Miracle Year, that Albert Einstein made some of his most important contributions to science, all while working at the patent office. In a single year, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers, each one a milestone in the history of physics. The most famous of these papers was the one on the photoelectric effect, where Einstein proposed that light could behave as both a wave and a particle. This idea challenged the very foundation of classical physics and helped lay the groundwork for the development of quantum mechanics. For this work, he would later win the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. But that wasn't all. Albert also published papers on the nature of motion, the theory of special relativity, and the equivalence of mass and energy, which would later become encapsulated in his famous equation, E equals mc squared. Now, let's take a moment to break down E equals mc squared. Since it's one of the most famous equations in all of science. What Albert was saying with this equation was groundbreaking. He was showing that energy and mass are essentially 2 forms of the same thing. They can be converted into one another. This meant that tiny amounts of matter could be converted into enormous amounts of energy, a concept that would later be critical to the development of nuclear energy. But Einstein's ideas weren't accepted by everyone right away. In fact, his theories about relativity initially caused quite a bit of controversy among the scientific community. Many physicists didn't fully understand or agree with his radical new ideas. Yet, despite the skepticism, Einstein's work started to slowly gain traction. Over time, more and more people realized the brilliance behind his thinking. By the time Albert Einstein had reached his mid-20s, he was already beginning to reshape the very foundations of science. His time at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic had set the stage for what would become some of the most revolutionary ideas in history. And though he was still quite young and still facing many challenges in his career, Einstein's journey had only just begun. Albert Einstein's early years at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic taught him more than just the facts and figures of science. They taught him to think differently, to question the status quo, and to push the boundaries of what was known. And as we'll see in the next chapter, this was just the beginning of a journey that would take him to even greater heights. So, stay tuned. In our next chapter, we'll follow Albert's rise to international fame and explore how his theories began to change the world forever. Thanks for listening to this chapter of Albert Einstein's story. I hope you're feeling inspired by his journey as much as I am. See you next time, and keep asking questions, just like Einstein did.